Hi everyone, welcome to the Wargaming Parrot. I am David, and today's video is going to be a lovely niche one which people seem to enjoy. It's going to be all about why conures and other parrots flip their food and water bowls. And I'm going to explain the reasons why and also some sort of suggestions as to how you can prevent it, because we've had a similar problem with Scampi and we found some solutions that tend to help with this behaviour. So I thought I'd start off with the reasons why conures tend to flip their food bowls. And when I'm talking about flipping, I'm talking about getting a food bowl and tipping it right out, throwing it on the floor and throwing it around, rather than just playing with it, because sometimes they do like to sort of like move it around a little bit. And the first reason, and most common one, is it is fun, exciting and overstimulating. When you have a food bowl, and especially it's a metal one, and they're clattering it, it makes a fun and interesting noise. And that can be fun, and it can alleviate some boredom, and it can be almost self-reinforcing because the noise is stimulating and interesting in and of itself. Now, the next most common reason is it is an attention-seeking behaviour. Sometimes conures, for example Olive, will clatter her bowl a little bit when she wants a wash. And when they're doing that, that's completely fine because they're literally just trying to tell us what they want. It's only when it becomes a bit of a nuisance behaviour and they're tipping their food out everywhere and then complaining they're not getting their food, which is a point I'll cover later. But it can be a form of attention seeking. When they're doing this with their bowls, you're going no, no, you're going over, you're giving them lots of attention, and you're doing all sorts of things like that. And that can be a problem in and of itself because that's reinforcing every time you're giving them attention for it. And that leads on to my next point. They could be training you to change their food bowls. For example, in the morning when you have a nice chop, they eat their favourite bits, they're hungry, they don't want to eat the rest of it, they tip it out. And then us as really good parrot owners come over and go, there, and then change that food bowl over with nice, lovely treats. And that is a form of training. They are training you to do what they want. So it's something to be aware of and something to be careful of when you're dealing with this behaviour. Now, this is actually a problem specific to metal food bowls, as they're the most popular and probably the best food bowls you can get. And that is the reflective surface. Some aren't brushed steel, they're quite reflective. So if a conure or other parrot sees their reflection in it, it can cause a reaction and cause them to want to play with it and behave in sort of almost a hormonal manner, which leads on to the next point, in that if your conure is hormonal or potentially bored, this could be a very common reason as to why they're playing. If they see that reflective surface, they're going to want to bash it, they're going to want to interact with it. So it's something to be aware of. Finally as well, when conures are hormonal or bored or sometimes playful, they'll egg each other on. Pickles will egg Scampi on to bash the food bowl sometimes, and then that can be a problem as well if you've got multiple conures or indeed other parrots too. So I've covered some of the reasons why conures and other parrots do flip their food bowls and sort of interact in a nuisance manner. Now I'm going to cover some of the possible solutions, and the first solution is probably the hardest. It's just like with screaming and the other sort of behaviours we don't like seeing, and that's not reacting. When they're flipping that food bowl, in that moment, the thing you do not want to do is rush over or tell them off. You need to let them finish that behaviour really, even if it does tip that food on the floor. If you can prevent it before it starts, that's also helpful too, but you do not want to react in that moment. Similarly, when we talked about the reasons why, if they do tip that food bowl on the floor, you do not want to refill it immediately. Just refill it when it's time to do so. For example, if Scampi was to tip his chop out in the morning, I would literally just turn the bowl over and let him eat what's left on the floor. If he does in the evening, it's the same. And then you just refill it when they're supposed to be refilled. You don't just refill it immediately because, again, that's playing to the behaviour, and it's not going to do them any harm if they do not like have a full food bowl for that day. There'll be food on the floor, there'll be food elsewhere, they can enjoy that. Again, this will be dependent on the type of cage you have. If you have bars, that food's going to fall through, so you may have to do an extra refill, for example, at a set point because they're not going to be able to access it. But it's very important not to refill it immediately. Another way you can sort of prevent this behaviour and also add sort of alternatives in the cage is offer foods in different ways. Offer sort of a foraging opportunity on the floor of the cage perhaps. Maybe have foraging opportunities within toys. Give them different ways to find their food, so that bowl doesn't become like the all-important part of the cage and the most stimulating part, because they can go on the floor of the cage and access food from a paper plate, they can find their toys, and so the bowl doesn't become that thing that they must focus on. Providing lots more toys can be very helpful too. Sometimes a conure or another parrot will start doing this behaviour and flipping their food bowl plainly because they're bored and there's not enough to do in that cage. So if you have lots of different toys, lots of activities, and they know how to use them, because sometimes you have to train a parrot to use toys, it may help alleviate some of these problems. And again, it ties into foraging. Having food opportunities in these toys makes them more reinforcing. This can be also like providing a metal food bowl on the floor of the cage, so they don't feel the need to tip the one at the top. You can have a food bowl at the bottom of the cage, and that may fulfill that criteria. Also, it can be made into a foraging bowl. You can get clattering toys for parrots depending on your tolerance for noise. So instead of doing the food bowl, they'll be clattering the toys around and playing with them. Now, a very simple and useful technique for dealing with a bowl flipping parrot is just covering up the reflexive surface and also wedging it into the little ring. We found this technique exceptionally effective with Scampi, and there's two ways you can approach it. One is we use these little cupcake cases which cover up the reflective surface and wedge the bowl in. So we just literally put the bowl within this. Can make it a little bit more fiddly to get them out, but it works really well because he can't flip it, he can't see the reflective surface, he's not that interested in them, so he just leaves them alone. The other and more easy way, and also a little bit more user-friendly, is just getting some paper and wedging it in the edge of the bowl. It can sometimes make it fun because they like to chew the edge of it, but it stops the bowl from coming out and it wedges it in nice and securely, and it's a lot more cost-effective and user-friendly because you just get a piece of paper, scrunch it up and shove it next to the bowl. If the behaviour is hormone-based and they're getting overstimulated by the bowls, then you know the sort of techniques you need to employ for hormone management. I have videos on hormones, which I'll leave a card for now, and hormone management techniques can help with this behaviour because sometimes it can be a hormonal behaviour. You can also implement redirection training. For example, if Scampi's having a go at his food bowl and I need to redirect him elsewhere, you can use target training and redirect his behaviour elsewhere or onto a toy. Finally, if nothing else is working and you've tried all these techniques and it's really, really difficult, you could just change the food bowls. There are clip-on ones. I believe most of them are plastic, which isn't ideal. However, if the behaviour is really bad and you need more time to work on it, and input sort of like hormone techniques and training, you can change those food bowls to ones that they can't remove. And that's kind of a last resort, I feel, because it's not always the most helpful technique, but it's something you can do. So guys, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you found it useful and maybe it gave you some tips on solving any bowl tipping issues you may have with your conure or other parrot. If you have any comments, please feel free to leave them down below. If you want more videos like this on niche topics, also let me know because I'm happy to do them. But in the meantime, from me, Scampi and Pickles, who's just out of shot, take care and have a really good day.